Brilliant. Good afternoon, everyone. It is wonderful to welcome you to the MA Curating Virtual Open Day. I am Sophia Gotti, lecturer in curating and co-leader of the MA, together with Devika Singh. Before Devika introduces herself too and we proceed, I just wanted to say that there is a question box at the bottom. So please, as we go along, if you have any questions, start putting them into the box and we will answer them at the end of our presentation today.
Thanks, Sophia. So I'm Devika Singh. I'm together with Sophia Gotti, the other co-lead of the MA in Curating at the Courtauld. I'm a senior lecturer in Curating at the Courtauld. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. It's a great pleasure to tell you a little bit more about our MA in Curating. If we can please have the first or the second, I think we can move to the second slide now. I hope you can see them because I'm not able to see the slides at the moment. Hannah, do you think this is working?
Yes, you're showing the MA curating slide now.
Okay, good. I had to switch slides. Okay, good. I see your screen now, so this is perfect. So our MA, by way of broad introduction, we're going to go into many more details over the course of this hour, is a 12-month program. It is run at the moment full-time only. We predict that there will be about 42 students for the next academic year. What's important to keep in mind is though the core courses are taught in these groups of 42 students, when it comes to electives, the elective modules are taught in smaller groups of about 14 students. Our campus at the moment is at Vernon Square, though it is complemented with study trips to many places across London, also outside London in the UK, and typically one international study trip a year, which is a really exciting opportunity that can happen at different moments in the year. We predict next year that it will happen in the first semester. And at Somerset House, as you well know, there's also the Courtauld Gallery, and we have the great opportunity to draw on the expertise of our colleague in the Courtauld Institute faculty and of our curator colleagues and other professionals in the field, and it's very valuable at the Courtauld Gallery, which is located in Somerset House. So broadly speaking, some of the objectives of the course is to equip you with a deep knowledge and an understanding of the history, theory, and practice of curating. You're going to be provided with a broad range of methods and approaches, and that's really also going to help you to hone not only your skills, but also your profile through the core courses and also through the electives that you'll have the opportunity to choose on in the different semesters. You'll develop your skills in terms of research, in terms of display, of interpretation, and how these different elements intersect. And our aim is to, the way it is written here, at least produce graduates with methodological and practical skills, research techniques, and a sophisticated understanding of what is necessary for a wide range of careers. And we'll be speaking about careers further down. So what we're going to do is to break all these things down also and give you a better understanding, a more fine-grained understanding of what a year at the Courtauld in our MA looks like. What does it mean in terms of each model? What does it mean for you on a semester basis, and so forth? So I think we'll move now to the first semester. If we can have the next slide, please.
It's a little bit slow.
Okay, no worries. Take your time.
So just as Devika was saying, we will take you through sort of a semester by semester overview of the course to get a flavor of what it does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in semester one, there are core modules. The first one is called History and Theory of Curating. The second one, Critical Debates. And another one connected to the end of year dissertation is research skills and dissertation. And then there's a range of elective modules. In the next slide, we're going to go into details into the content of these modules. The first one being the history and theory of curating. If we just move to the next slide. This is basically a course that covers in the broadest historical sense, but also in the broad geographical sense, and that's something that's particularly important to us, not just the history of museums, but really the history of curating and of display, bringing into the picture the Kunstkammern, but also collecting practices in Mughal India, in Iran, and in many other places, and it moves all the way up to the contemporary. And what it equips you with is really a core understanding of the debates in a historically grounded way. So how can you engage with the field today and make some of these debates really important, and how can they underpin your practice as a curator with that deep knowledge and expertise? Something important to keep in mind is that in this module, but really throughout the program, we also invite a range of guest speakers, and this is really important in terms of for you to get to know, but also expose you to different voices in the field, and these tend to be really leading experts in a broad range of professions that are pertinent, of course, to the curatorial career. In the next slide, I'll go quickly over another module that is a core module titled Critical Debates, and that is taught together with the History of Art department, which is a really nice opportunity to also be part of groups that include both colleagues in MA Curating, but also in the History of Art, and therefore also to be taught not just by ourselves, but also by colleagues in the History of Art faculties. And this module is typically organized according to groups, one pertaining, for just an example, to migrations, another pertaining this year to archival bodies and so forth. So these are thematic groups, and that's another really interesting way of approaching a range of topics. Next slide takes you to a core module that is connected to the very end of year, the last assessment of our program, which is a dissertation, which is handed in September. But what's really important is that from early on in the program, you are getting to be trained and getting to hone your research skills that will lead eventually to the submission of the end of year dissertation, for which you're getting also one-to-one supervisions, and which is an opportunity to develop your own research questions. In the next slide, I'm going to take you through the specific electives that are currently being offered in semester 1. The first one pertains to curating European modern art in the 21st century. So again, this is like all electives, an opportunity to be, as I was saying earlier, in smaller groups and also be taken to visits. And visits are often also the opportunity to meet with professionals in the field in their own quote unquote place of work, in museums, for instance, and other such places. So here in this particular elective, some of the questions that asked concerns the most influential exhibitions, quote unquote, of modern art. What does it mean? How is value ascribed to art? How is value ascribed to these European art movements, and so forth? And most importantly, how are they presented, interpreted, or reinterpreted today, considering that this remains often a core base of many programs, at least here in the UK. Next elective, please. That is also currently running in the first semester, considers curating historic buildings and heritage sites. This is co-taught by 2 of our colleagues, and the previous one I should have mentioned too is taught by another colleague. So these are also opportunities to engage with further faculty members. Here in this particular case, and we used a beautiful image from Nathan House to illustrate that, this elective focuses on, as the title suggests, on heritage sites, but also on stately homes, on a broad range of buildings. They could be ecclesiastic buildings, there could be other forms of sites that are of national interest in the UK, possibly also in Ireland, and looks at the particularities of curating in these spaces, of the challenges that it meets, and we know how pertinent they are, particularly here. Next slide, please. The third module that is currently being offered in semester 1, so currently there are 3 modules in each semester, elective modules that is, pertains to working with artists. And this is run by you, Sophia, so I'll let you speak about it.
So with artists, kind of does what it says on the tin. It's a module that really focuses on the curator's relationship with the artist, whether it's a living artist or an artist estate or their archive. We try to think of the politics of how to build relationships, how to really build a curatorial practice through one's relationship with artists. What are the mutual stakes that we need to be aware of in these relationship building processes? And what we actually do throughout the elective is kind of meet with artists at various stages of their career. So lots of studio visits in London, but also visit artist estates and speak to professionals that deal with artist estates, and so engage with the practical but also ethical issues that come with working with artist estates and their archives. At this point, I will carry on into semester 2, right? Where kind of the format is reproduced. It's repeated almost to semester 1. However, with a different series of core and elective modules, of course. So the second sort of seminar-based or lecture-based core module taking place in semester 2 is the practice of curating. So this really builds on the history and theory of curating. And then we've got the research skills and dissertation sort of continue. And we begin on what then kind of culminates the 2 teaching semesters, which is the exhibition project. Now, in the next slides, I will go into further detail in each one of these things with a series of electives. Please, next slide. So the practice, as it builds on what has been established in semester 1, and it will focus on the curator's bread and butter. So everything from conceptualization to the production of exhibitions, public programming, loans, acquisitions, conservation, exhibition designs, et cetera, et cetera. What will happen during this course is that you will be exposed to a wide array of museum and sort of professionals in the field, whether exhibition designers or registrars or conservators, who will really give you a sense on what is required and all the things that you really need to understand to operate as a curator in the culture industries. So very much like the history and theory of curators, guest speakers are very, very important and structural to this course too. Next slide. The exhibition project is, as I said, the culmination of sort of the 2 teaching semesters, and we start thinking about the exhibition project in at the beginning of semester 2. The exhibition project will bring the cohort to work in small groups on real-life exhibitions, so which will open between the end of May and the beginning of June. So you have really from mid-January until the end of June, the end of May, to conceptualize and develop an exhibition that will come to life. And this can be either a conventional exhibition, or it could be a site-specific project, a performance, a public program. It will very much vary according to the organizations that we are able to partner with, to also your desires as the curators of these projects. But what really we are very adamant to achieve through these projects are real life situations. So you will be put in relation to institutions, to spaces that have missions and agendas. So There will be very lifelike scenarios where you will have to respond to briefs that are very specific and that require a whole set of skills that you will have developed during your first 2 semesters of teaching. Next slide, please. So this is just to give you an example of the collaborations we have in place this year. These are 3 of 4 projects actually that will come to life at the end of 2026. And these are a project at St. Mary Le Strand, which is a working church just opposite Somerset House, and its surrounding area, which is run by Westminster City Council. It's called Strand Aldwych. Another one is the Nicoletta Fiorucci Foundation, which is a domestic space turned white cube, so to speak, in the neighborhood of Chelsea in London. And the other one is the Freud Museum in Hampstead, which is, of course, Freud's former often hosts contemporary programs. So these are 3 examples, and there are more like them. Next slide. So starting with our elective modules, one of the ones offered this year is Introduction to Conservation for Curators. So a very important thing to know about the Courtauld is that it has a world-leading conservation center, which really is an absolute asset for the Institute. So not only it operates as a conservation center independently of the teaching organization, but it is very valuable to the galleries and to us as training curators and all the knowledge that it contains. So this is one really important elective that we are able to offer, which also interestingly allows research into areas of contemporary art that cut across action. You're able to work as often our contemporary artists do through research-led practices that really engage both the ancient world and the contemporary. Next slide. This is another elective run by Dr. Waniteo, who is a senior lecturer in contemporary art, modern and contemporary art here at the Courtauld. And this elective really questions all the implicit biases that inform sort of institutional practices, exhibition design, and all kind of culture work in the public realm. And it focuses on ideas around access, which are not only sort of thinking around accessibility, but also as an issue that is political, relational, and imaginative, and something that really can transform a curatorial imagination. And it focuses on case studies. It brings students to do site visits across London to really understand how these practices are transforming institutions across the landscape. The next slide, please.
So yeah. I'll speak to that because that's the elective that I run in semester 2, working with collections. So broadly speaking, and to echo what you were saying, Sophia, what's wonderful through the range of electives, because we're in smaller groups, because they're visits, because they continue to be great level of engagement with guest speakers who we invite to speak to you, or we take you to them, is that we're putting you also in situations that are happening, of course, in the group curatorial project that's mentioned, but in situations that are as close as possible. And we do that through the types of assessment, often also group assessments that we decided, as close as possible to professional situations. And one of them is, of course, not in all aspects of curating, but in something that is really important to many of us who've worked at least in institutions is the capacity to work with collections, to care for them, not just to acquire and bring new artworks into a collection, that's important, but also to interpret, reinterpret, and display collections. And artworks in a collection can mean many different things, from great so-called masterpieces of Impressionism and Post-Impressionism that we hold in the Courtauld Gallery, to an artwork such as this one that you can see here, which is a performance by Li Mingwei that is part of the Tate collection, and I worked on it as a co-curator of this performance, hence the fact that we use this image here. And this is also an opportunity, so to draw on the experience in this particular elective of colleagues at the Courtauld Gallery, and we have several sessions with them in which they really take you behind the scenes of the Courtauld Gallery, but also to engage with other professionals. So one thing that I'm doing this year, just as an example, is to take students taking this elective to one of the storerooms of the major art collections in the UK. So you'll get to speak with the head of the collection, but also literally to see how artworks are being stored. And another guest speaker that we have is a director of a very important institution in West Asia that is currently being developed. So that just gives you an idea also of the range of engagements that we have in one particular elective. If we move on, I think we have a little bit more to share about our course.
Yes, indeed. So we have a little slide about assessment. So the various elements that the MA is assessed on. The first one is portfolios that include 3,000-word essays, exhibition texts, and other short written texts specific to each module. This means that we have a range of different kinds of assessment, the aims of which are to train sort of curators to write all the different kinds of texts that a curator needs to be able to write, which go from, a wall text to a label, to a grant application, to an interview perhaps, or a profile of an artist, to a sales pitch, anything really. There's a wide range of things that we encourage you to experiment with. Then, of course, there will be a virtual exhibition that is also a preparation for the actual exhibition that you will do later. And ultimately, an 8,000-word dissertation to be submitted in September. The topic of this dissertation is, because we are at the Courtauld, there is a great of specialism that you can draw from. One thing that we didn't mention at the beginning, I am my academic specialism is Latin American art, and Devika, South Asia and beyond. And sort of we think about the 20th century, the 21st century, and our interest is really to expand geographies, but also chronologies. So this is something that the MA in its very essence embraces. Next slide. Yeah, we're done. There we go.
And we'll answer, of course, any questions that haven't been answered in the process of the presentation at the end.
Thank you both. So my name's Anna. I work on the admissions team at the Courtauld. I'm just going to take you through some details on the process of applying for the Curating MA. So there we go. So how to apply. So starting off with the application deadline. The deadline, the equal consideration application deadline is on the 12th of January, but you can kind of apply from now until then. If you submit your application by the 12th of January, we will aim to issue decisions from the 27th of February onwards. If you aren't able to submit on the 12th of January, so you submit a late application, after the deadline, this may be considered on a rolling basis, and decisions will be issued similarly. I do just want to say that we do really encourage submitting the application by the 12th of January, because there's kind of no guarantee, that places will still be available after that. I'll come back to it later, but another thing to flag is that the scholarship application deadline is also on the 12th of January, so that's another reason to get that in on time. Okay, so our entry requirements for students in the UK or who have studied UK qualifications, normally they will have a good 2-1 in their bachelor's degree. Of course, we welcome applications, from other forms of academic or professional experience, but that tends to be the majority of successful candidates meet those requirements. If you're an overseas applicant, then we're looking for a result kind of equivalent to that UK degree. So for example, in the US, that would be a GPA of 3.3 or above, would sort of be equivalent to that good 2-1. We do have a website new this year called International Entry Requirements, which does touch on a few of the different equivalences from around the world. So do have a look there if you're looking for your particular circumstance. If you can't find it or if you have any questions, we'd recommend contacting our international team, which is international@courtauld.ac.uk, and they should be able to have a chat with you about that, your particular circumstance. And then for English language requirements, if English is not your first language, you do need to submit some evidence of your English language level. The secure English language tests that we accept are IELTS and Cambridge language test, but we also have another website called English Language Requirements, which goes into a little bit more detail on the different ways that you can meet that requirement. But if you have any questions, again, just reach out and we'll have a chat with you about that. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to some of the particular documents that we're looking for in the application, starting with the personal statement. So it's 600 words in total is the word limit, and it gives you space to tell us about why you want to apply for the Courtauld in general, any relevant study projects, dissertation, your previous BA dissertation, for example, or work experience that you might have that makes you a good fit for the curating program. Any interests or key skills, again, that make you a good fit, and why you stand out as a candidate. And also then you can go on to touch on any career aspirations that you might have kind of relevant to the program. As it says there, it's not prescriptive. You don't have to stick to it kind of exactly, but it should give you a strong starting point to kind of build on to make your own kind of unique statement. Okay, and then written work samples. So for the curating MA, the word limit is 3,000 to 5,000 words. Preferably, this would be a chapter from your BA dissertation, and if possible, in kind of art history or a historical subject or kind of a relevant subject to the curating program. If you haven't completed your BA or you did it in something slightly different, you can submit an essay of a suitable length or even 2 essays, as long as combined they don't exceed the word limit in total. If you haven't done your degree or kind of you left a very long time ago, that does happen, we understand, and you can submit a new piece of writing if you really need to, but it just need to meet those requirements, kind of the word limit requirement, that sort of thing. When you submit the writing, do just give us a bit of context, like it says, so if it is a chapter from your BA dissertation, where it comes from, just so our reviewers know kind of what they're looking at. Yeah, moving on. So to your academic transcripts, so these are a big one. We do need your official and final transcripts from all your previous degrees, so that might be your current degree or if you completed it a while ago. What we're kind of looking for is all the details of your program. It might seem kind of obvious, but just to kind of cover it, the program that you took, the modules you took, the grades you got, and very important, your final overall grade. If you haven't completed your degree, that's okay. We can accept an interim transcript now, and then if you were successful in securing an offer, we would look for you to submit the final transcript as a condition of that offer. We do need them in electronic copies, so either from your university as an electronic copy, or you can scan and send us your kind of hard copy via email. And then if any of those documents are not in English, so if you took your degree in a country where it wasn't taught in English, then you would need to also provide us with an English language translation, and that would need to be a certified translation, just something to be aware of. Okay, moving on to references. So ideally what we're looking for is 2 academic references, and if one of them could be your BA supervisor, dissertation supervisor, that would be great. If that's not possible, there are lots of reasons for that. Maybe you have done your degree a little while ago, then you can use a professional reference instead. Equally, with a program like Curating, if you've had work experience kind of in the field before, and you wanted to do, one professional and one academic reference, and you think that would strengthen the application, then, you can do that. But we are really looking for people who can talk to your your potential to learn, your academic history, and your intellectual abilities. So really kind of have a think about who can kind of speak to that best. When you submit your application, you will need to put in all the details of your references, and that will send an automatic request to your referees. Please do just note that you can't go back in and edit those details once you've submitted it, so do check them carefully beforehand, otherwise it can get a little bit, you have to kind of contact us to get things amended. So yeah, just have a quick look before you submit. And we also recommend contacting your referees beforehand, preferably 4 to 6 weeks beforehand, so that they can prepare their reference and kind of get all the details together so they can submit the strongest thing to support your application. I know some people, obviously applying as soon as possible is great. Some people do submit up to the end of the line. Your referees don't need to be in on the exact deadline date, but if your referees aren't in kind of up to or past 5 days after the deadline, that 12th of January deadline, your application might be submitted for review without the referees. So it's really in your best interest to contact them prior so they know what's going on and they can kind of submit as soon as possible. Right, moving on just quickly to the other requirements. We do need a copy of all of your passports, so any passports that you hold, clear scans, so that we can kind of read all the details, and your CV is also a very important document, kind of showing all your prior experience, so maybe things that you haven't been able to fit in your personal statement, that's a good place to put them in your CV, and we'd really ask you to include kind of the city and country as well, just adds a bit more context. And then lastly, your any previous UK visas. So say, for example, you're doing your BA in the UK, but you're not kind of from the UK, and you've got a student visa, just send us a scan of that. We do kind of need that for our records. In regard to all of these documents and all of these kind of applying, there is a website called Postgraduate Application Guidance and FAQs, which goes into a lot more detail about everything. So do have a look there. It's really helpful. But if you have any other questions, you can just reach out to us, and we're happy to help. And then kind of one of the last or penultimate big things is our scholarship and funding. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, the deadline for applying for all Courtauld linked funding, postgraduate funding, is also the 12th of January. So you need to get that in at the same time as your application. The main scholarships, there are quite a few on our scholarship website, but the main ones that are sort of relevant for the Curating programme are the Courtauld New Voices MA Scholarship, which is up to 6 awards of £15,500, I believe. And those are assessed on widening participation criteria. So you complete a form and answer a number of questions. All of the criteria that they're assessed on is on the website, so I'd really recommend taking a thorough look there before applying. And then the second set of scholarships is the Courtauld Postgraduate Study Scholarships. So that's a little bit different. There's kind of lots of different scholarships, and they are very generous funders. Some of them, they have put kind of criteria around who kind of those scholarships can be awarded to. So it might be a particular program, a particular area of study, even broader, or maybe, for example, kind of a particular nationality that they want the awardee to kind of have. So have a thorough look on the website again, and see if you kind of are eligible for any of them. And then there's one form for both of those scholarships. And when you submit, you can tick the boxes for whichever ones that you think you're eligible for. And that kind of comes through to us for assessment. And then 2 other things just to flag are the UK and US loans. So there's some information on the website that you can have a look and see if you're available. You will need to have to kind of apply for them directly with the relevant government, but we've got some information on the website to tell you how you can do that. And then lastly there, the alumni loyalty scheme. So if any of you are BA students, you might be eligible for that. It's a 10% kind of discount, so to speak. You'll automatically be kind of added or taken away rather. So you don't need to apply for that or anything. It's just something to be aware of. We do just want to flag though, kind of postgraduate funding is definitely limited, kind of with the current environment, but, and also just kind of within the Courtauld. Not everyone who applies, not everyone who is eligible and probably deserving will kind of get that funding, and we do want to kind of manage expectations. Absolutely still apply, don't want to discourage you at all, but just want to flag that now, and just say that most students do need to use different funding sources to cover all the costs of funding, so please do look widely and take that into account. And then last thing from me is accommodation. So if you're interested in applying for our accommodation options, the applications for those halls will be live from February. The ones that are relevant for the curating, as a 12-month postgraduate program is Duchy House, which is our Courtauld accommodation, and then the intercollegiate halls of residence, which is the University of London accommodation. Again, similar to the scholarship kind of topic, our website does have a number of different external alternative options, and we do encourage our students to look widely at external options as well. There is a contact for the accommodation team who kind of handle those applications. It's down there as hall applications 2627 at Courtauld. That email is also on their website with more information. But yeah, that's everything from me. If you have any questions about the process of applying or anything that I've just talked about, please get in touch with us at pgadmissions@courtauld.ac.uk. I'll be happy to help, or we can kind of direct you to the best team who should be able to help you. But I'll hand it back to Devika and Sophia to kind of take on the questions, although obviously I will answer any that are for me as well. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. So we received a few questions. I was going through them. Perhaps something we could start with is a question that's in the that pertain to the weekly schedule. If that's something we can, then there are a number also that could go for you, and about application fees and other such things. So the question exactly is about what would a weekly schedule look like for this course? So we could tell you that typically, so as explained, you have the core module, for example, this semester, History and Theory of Curating. There's a lecture followed by seminars for which the cohort is divided. So that's a very important moment of the week. I could tell you at what moment it falls in this year, on the weekly schedule, but it could change next year. The most important thing is that takes up an entire morning, and you're asked, like for all courses, to read and prepare, in addition to what we call summative assessments, so the ones that are marked. There's also a range of formative assessments, which could be done and delivered either on an individual basis or in a group capacity. And there are sometimes also, in addition to that, small tasks, which we ask you to prepare so that there's a proper, really engaging and lively discussion in the seminar. So reading, tasks, and different forms of assessments. So it's really important to keep that in mind. But in terms of contact hours, the core course forms that basis in semester 1. In addition to that, there is another course, the core course called Critical Debates. That's also once a week, and that has a similar format: lecture followed by seminar. The research skills sessions happen across the semester, but not on a weekly basis. So for now, we have 2 core modules that are outlined in this semester. And to that, you add one elective. There's a moment at the very beginning of the year in which students are asked to express their preference for electives in semester 1 and semester 2. On that basis, they're allocated on the basis of the preferences expressed, with the attempt to meet them really as far as possible. And we, together with our colleagues who take care of this, make a great effort to do that. But you're allocated an elective on that basis. And that happens, so this year I could tell you on a Thursday or Friday, could change next year. So broadly speaking, you have to be in the Courtauld, and the elective, as we expressed earlier, could be a seminar, it could be a visit, depending on the week and the way it's organized. Broadly speaking, every week of a semester in semester 1, and it's similar in semester 2, you are in about 3 days a week, depending a little bit on the architecture. And most importantly, for all these courses, you both need to prepare, and you're asked, and this is all very well explained in writing to you. There's great clarity, of course, on the requests and the assessments, and they can be really wonderful moments as we explains to hone your skills and to put you in situations that are as close as possible to real life situation when it comes to putting together a checklist, perhaps a condition report, writing an artist profile, and so forth. So I just want to emphasize that both the contact hours and the time that is requested from you, so that you have a real overview of what a week could look like. And as the year moves on, there's also, as we explained earlier, the group curatorial project, in which in a range of locations, and these may change from year to year, but really exciting partners, you are able, with a group of peers, to organize an exhibition or a curatorial project. It could be a performance, it could be other such things. And that's important to keep in mind, that the nature of the format could change. And that may have its own pace, and is typically delivered in the end of May, early June. That would be the sort of opening, and that is also organized in semesters, in which you get to be at the Courtauld, but also have to be on site at the different venues. So there's a bit of accommodation there that may be required, depending on the schedule also of partner venues. I hope that helps clarify things about the weekly run.
And I would just like to make a quick short note about the extracurriculars, to say that, you know, it sometimes happens that we are in contact with curators that maybe are traveling through town, and so we're able to arrange additional visits or, you know, meetings, and also so that can happen. All last minute things would not be part of any assessment or anything, but just to keep in mind the vibrancy of the community here, and never forget the research forums. So we have a public program at the Courtauld almost every night that is amongst the richest in London, and it should really be considered as a vital resource and part of your weekly schedule, because of the quality of the speakers and the fact that it is in the building, so very, very easy to everyone. Yeah.
So there are a few other questions. Maybe we can bundle them for reasons of time. One, for example, pertaining to very practically, should the curator have a PhD? So of course, what we've been discussing is an MA program. If you wish to do a PhD, and depending on where you would like to build your career, the perspective may change, because, for example, in the UK, it is not something that all curators have. All curators do not hold a PhD. It is more common, for instance, in the United States. So there's some specificities there which depend a little bit on where you'd like to work or be able to apply for positions. However, what's important is that we consider that after this MA program, you will be ready for a range of professional careers and to really begin your career. But if you wish to continue on to your PhD, we have also at the Courtauld a very robust PhD program, a very vibrant, as you were saying, Sophia, research forum, very vibrant research events. So you would have the opportunity already during the MA, including during your end of year 8,000 word dissertation, to really get on with your research already during the MA. So the option is really open to you, and you may still have that question at the beginning of the MA, and we can help you take the decision or at least support you with the information to take that decision in an informed way, whether you would like to carry on onto a PhD or not. And you can certainly do that with us at the Courtauld.
I have absolutely agree. No, and some institutions do require a PhD, but often I think it's important to think about the PhD sometimes also as a way for to shift career paths, which is often the case with curators, or maybe to, do the jump from maybe a curatorial assistant or working in another department that is not a curatorial department, that then you want to work your way back into a curatorial department. So that's where a PhD can become instrumental.
Anna, are there questions you would like to take? Is there an application fee? Can a student apply to 2 programs?
Yeah, we can talk about that. So there is no application fee at the actual point of applying. So when you submit your application, you don't have to pay for that. If you were successful in securing an offer, then you would need to pay a deposit to kind of secure that offer. But that's only after the point that you've actually secured an offer. So nothing to kind of don't have to pay to apply at all. What was the other one that you mentioned? Is that
can a student apply to 2 programs?
Yes. So when you submit your application, you do need to pick one program that you are interested in. So, for example, here that would be curating. There is a box that you can tick that says, if you're not successful in securing an offer for the program you've applied for, would you be interested in being considered for other programs? You can't specify which program that would be. If you tick that box, then kind of you would be looked at for some of the other programs. You should be able to submit a second application, kind of a separate application, if you really, really wanted to, for a different program, but it would have to be a completely new application. So that would be new details, new documents, kind of, if you wanted to apply for art business, for example, in addition, you'd have to kind of completely new one, and that would be with new references and all that sort of thing. I mean, you can use the same referees, but they have to submit them again. But really, it's kind of set up to apply for one program that you're sort of focusing on. But it is technically possible. Yeah. Okay. Not sure if there are any others that kind of fall under my.
I think no, I would like to answer the question about, which I think is very relevant, regarding the balance between academic theory and scholarship with practical application and skills-based learning. And I think that's something that is very much at the core of our teaching. So conjugating the two. For example, in the practice of curating, while the guest lectures and sort of the lecture class-based element of the course is very focused on practice. So you hear about sort of problem solving, you hear about the experience of curators in addressing certain issues or in mounting certain exhibitions or developing projects, et cetera, you, in the seminar element of the course, you very much try to measure the practical experience against theoretical reflection. So often the two things are developed in tandem. How does the theory inform or complicate the execution of certain projects, and how can theory help us be more critical and maybe deconstruct and rethink the way that certain things have been done or can be done. So I think that's a very important element. And in terms of structure of engagement between candidates and the dissertation advisor, the MA curating faculty, strictly speaking, is composed of Devika, I, and 2 teaching fellows, who will be sort of your prime people of contact in terms of dissertation advising. However, because the Courtauld has such an incredible richness of faculty, it goes without saying that you are absolutely in the position to reach out to any member of faculty you want to, and to seek their advice. And whether that turns into the formal supervision, that is something to be negotiated case by case, depending, of course, on the specificity of the research that you will be conducting. And maybe there was another question also about a job, and that's something that we get asked very frequently. And I think lots of our students have to work during their MA studies. It is, of course, it's not possible to have a full-time job while you are conducting an MA. But of course, many people do have part-time jobs, and also the Courtauld itself offers opportunities for student employment. But however, it's just a word of caution. It is of course a challenging, it's challenging goal, both job and studies, but it is possible to do so.
Yeah, I think that's important to stress, is that this is, of course, a very enriching, very stimulating MA program, like all our MAs at the Courtauld, and it relies on, great organizational skills, research skills, practical skills. It combines them. Some modules put more emphasis on one rather than the other, but they all combine them, and that's why I think you were talking about theory, even when about a module that's called practice of curating, that they're combined within modules. So that means that in terms of how your week is organized, don't think just about the contact hours. Think about what will be required from you to organize yourself and to really make the most out of the program, and to get that balance right, I think, is really important, especially if you need, which is entirely understandable, to work aside from the master's program. So let me see if it's not possible to answer all the questions, unfortunately, there are just too many. But have we answered the most pressing ones, the one that seemed determining? The list of the elective modules that was asked early on, and I believe we answered that. They're also repeated. It's listed in one of the sentences on the webpage. So I encourage you, of course, we gave more detail in this presentation, and that should be posted on the webpage too. But don't forget that we also have a summary, at least, of the teaching on our webpage, and that offers at some point a list of the electives that are offered in 2025-26, so in this academic year. It could vary slightly next year, but it gives you an idea of the scope, of the broad scope, and that's what's really important to think. And one of the things that broad scope will allow you is to engage not only just colleagues who are experts in their respective field at the Courtauld, but also to sort of hone your profile and get acquainted in a much more in-depth way with a given aspect of curating. And as you saw, they verge from curating historical sites to issues having to do with the politics and the policies of access. So that gives you a broad range of options.
I wanted to jump in if that's okay. I just saw a couple of questions about applying for deferred entry. That's not possible with RMAs, so you would need to be applying for September 2026. That's right. If you're applying in the submission cycle, we don't generally kind of allow deferrals. So if you wanted to apply for the next kind of year, 2027, you would need to submit an application in the next admission cycle, which usually opens in the autumn, so kind of autumn 2026. I just saw a couple of questions about that, so I wanted to clarify. Yeah.
Sophia, unless you think there's another pressing question, what I assume that those joining the virtual, as I see the clock ticking, those joining the virtual presentation today are not able to come into campus, but we can't exclude that. So I just wanted to remind everyone that we will be there on Wednesday on the 26th in the evening at the Vernon Square campus. It'll be us, it'll be our colleagues discussing other MAs. So that's a really nice opportunity, if you can make it, of course, to come in the evening, get to know us, hear much more about the Courtauld also as an institution, get to see our campuses, and ask any other questions that we may not have been able to answer in this short presentation.
Nothing. Well, thank you so much to everyone who attended, and we look forward to reading your applications, hopefully, and please do reach out if you have any further questions.
Yeah. Thank you very much for attending. Goodbye. Good
Bye.
afternoon.